The Federation Military Academy's training grounds buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of alien cadets gathered for their first day of combat training. Among them stood a lone human, Jack Stone, his sturdy frame drawing curious glances from the various species around him. Master Instructor Blue, a towering insectoid from the Rigel system, clicked his mandibles in annoyance as he reviewed the class roster. His compound eyes narrowed at the sight of Earth listed under one cadet's planet of origin. In his 30 cycles of training new recruits, he had never encountered a Deathworlder. Attention, recruits! Blue's translator broadcasted his voice across the training field. Welcome to Advanced Combat Course 7 Beta. This intensive program will push you to your absolute limits over the next 7 standard cycles. The alien cadets straightened their postures, their various appendages snapping to attention. Jack simply stood there, a slight smile playing on his face as he observed the different species trying to mimic standard military stance with their diverse anatomies. Assistant Second Grade Green, another instructor, leaned closer to Blue and whispered, "Sir, should we adjust the gravity settings for the human? Standard training gravity is set to 0.8 Earth standard." Blue's antennae twitched in contemplation. Negative. The Federation doesn't coddle its recruits. If the human can't handle it, they can drop out like any other cadet. Jack's enhanced hearing picked up their conversation, but he kept his expression neutral. Coming from Earth, with its crushing gravity and harsh conditions, he found the training grounds environment almost relaxing. The first test began, an obstacle course designed to challenge beings from low-gravity worlds. Walls 3 times the height of an average human, acid pits that required precise jumping, and neural shock barriers that would overwhelm most species' nervous systems. Begin. Blue announced, starting the chronometer. The alien cadets moved cautiously, their bodies struggling against what they perceived as intense gravitational pressure. But Jack moved like water. His muscles, dense and powerful from a lifetime on Earth, propelled him forward with ease. Where others carefully calculated their jumps, he bounded over obstacles in single leaps. While alien cadets paused to gather strength before climbing, he scaled walls as if they were simple steps. The neural shock barriers that should have caused immense pain barely registered against his naturally evolved electrical resistance. Blue's mandibles clicked rapidly in disbelief as he watched the chronometer. 5 minutes had passed, and the human had already completed 1/3 of the course. The other instructors gathered around the monitoring station, their various biological displays of shock creating a symphony of gasps, clicks, and color changes. "Impossible," Green chittered, her bioluminescent patches flashing in distress. "He's moving through the course as if it were designed for juveniles." The alien cadets stopped their own attempts, transfixed by the spectacle before them. None had ever seen anyone move through the notorious course with such fluid grace and raw power. Some began recording with their neural implants, knowing that no one would believe their accounts without proof. As Jack approached the final section, a series of platforms suspended over a pit of non-lethal but extremely uncomfortable sonic waves, Blue realized with growing horror that the human wasn't just going to complete the course. He was going to shatter every record in the Academy's history. And this was just the beginning of what would become the most extraordinary training session the Federation Military Academy had ever witnessed. As Jack Stone completed the obstacle course in record time, Master Instructor Blue frantically accessed the Academy's database of training protocols. His trembling appendages scrolled through increasingly difficult challenges, searching for something, anything, that might slow down the human cadet. The endurance trial. Green suggested, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement. No species has ever completed more than 6 hours of continuous exposure to the shifting environmental chambers. Blue's compound eyes gleamed. Prepare the chamber immediately. Maximum variable settings. Jack stood calmly in the center of the massive hexagonal room as thick doors sealed behind him. The other cadets pressed against the observation windows, their various anatomical features betraying their mixture of concern and fascination. Cadet Stone, Blue's voice echoed through the chamber. You will experience rapid environmental shifts. Your goal is to maintain consciousness and basic motor functions. Most species tap out after the first phase. The human nodded, still wearing that mysterious smile that made Blue's exoskeleton itch with unease. The chamber began its cycle. First came the extreme cold, dropping to temperatures that would freeze most species solid. Jack's breath came out in visible puffs, but he simply started doing jumping jacks to maintain his body heat. The alien cadets watched in horror as frost formed on the observation windows. -70 degrees standard, Green reported. His core temperature is stable. Before Blue could process this information, the chamber shifted to intense heat. The kind of heat that would cook most species from the inside out. Jack's response? He slowed his movements to conserve energy and began controlled breathing exercises. 140 degrees standard, Green announced, her voice rising in pitch. He's sweating, but otherwise unaffected. Blue clicked his mandibles in frustration. Initiate pressure changes. Maximum variation. The chamber's pressure began to fluctuate wildly, from the crushing depths of a gas giant to the near vacuum of space. Most species would have collapsed from the rapid changes, their internal organs unable to cope with such extreme shifts. But Jack? He adjusted his breathing pattern again, his body naturally compensating for the pressure changes in ways that shouldn't have been possible. When the pressure dropped, his blood vessels constricted automatically. When it increased, his reinforced skeletal structure took the strain with ease. "Sir," one of the junior instructors interrupted, their tentacles writhing in agitation. "According to his biometrics, he's getting stronger." Blue's antenna shot straight up in alarm. What? The environmental stress is triggering his species' adaptive responses. His muscle density is increasing, and his bone structure is becoming more reinforced. He's adapting in real time. The chamber cycled through its entire week's worth of trials in just 20 minutes. Radiation exposure? Jack's cells repaired themselves faster than the damage could accumulate. Toxic atmosphere? His enhanced liver filtered it out like water. High gravity? His bones and muscles seemed to welcome the challenge. Finally, Blue slammed his appendage on the emergency stop button. The chamber returned to normal conditions, and Jack stood there, looking slightly flushed but otherwise perfectly fine. He even gave a friendly wave to the stunned observers. How? Blue's translator struggled to convey his mix of emotions. How are you still standing? Jack shrugged, his voice casual as he responded, "This is pretty similar to a typical spring day back home. You know, when the weather can't make up its mind? Though I have to admit, the pressure changes were a nice workout." Green's color had faded to a pale mint. A nice workout? Yeah, Jack stretched his arms above his head. On Earth, we sometimes get all 4 seasons in one day, plus tornadoes, earthquakes, and the occasional solar flare. Really keeps you on your toes, you know? Blue and Green exchanged looks of pure horror as they realized they had only scratched the surface of what their human cadet could endure. And they still had 5 more training protocols to go through. What's next? Jack asked cheerfully, bouncing on his toes. That was a good warm-up. After the environmental chamber incident, Master Instructor Blue decided to switch tactics. If physical challenges wouldn't break the human, perhaps mental ones would. He led Jack and the other cadets to the Neural Combat Simulator, the Academy's most advanced training system. This device, Blue explained, his mandibles clicking nervously, will test your reaction speed and decision-making abilities in combat scenarios. Most cadets require 3 days just to adjust to the neural interface. Jack sat in the simulation chair as neural probes descended from above. The alien cadets whispered among themselves. They had all heard stories about cadets who spent weeks recovering from the mental strain of just one session. Beginning neural sync, Green announced, monitoring the readings. Initiating at lowest setting to avoid, her voice cut off as Jack's neural patterns synchronized instantly with the system. The holographic display exploded with activity as combat scenarios began flooding in at unprecedented speeds. "This is incredible." Jack's voice carried genuine excitement. "It's just like those VR games we have back home, but with better graphics." Blue's compound eyes widened in horror as he watched the simulation counter. The system was presenting combat scenarios faster than it could generate them. Where most cadets needed several minutes to process each situation, Jack was completing them in seconds. Scenario after scenario flashed by: space pirates boarding a civilian vessel? Jack had them neutralized in 3.2 seconds. Hostile wildlife on an unexplored planet? He developed containment strategies before the creatures could even attack. Multiple front space battle? His solutions were so efficient that the simulation's AI began learning from him. "Sir," Green's voice trembled, "he's not just completing the scenarios, he's optimizing them. Look at these efficiency ratings." The neural interface, designed to deliver 1 week's worth of combat training, was running out of scenarios after just 15 minutes. Jack's human brain, evolved to process threats from Earth's most dangerous predators, was treating the highest-level simulations like a casual gaming session. "This is fascinating," Jack commented, casually dispatching a simulated invasion force. "But you might want to update your threat assessment protocols. These scenarios assume everyone's moving at non-Earth gravity speeds." One of the junior instructors, a crystalline being named Spark, began analyzing Jack's performance data. According to this, his threat recognition speed is impossible. He's recognizing patterns and making decisions faster than our most advanced AI systems. Blue watched in a mixture of awe and terror as Jack began suggesting improvements to the scenarios. "You know, if you adjust the gravitational variables and account for different atmospheric densities, these situations become much more challenging. Also, your prediction algorithms don't account for species-specific panic responses." The simulation finally ran out of scenarios, ending much earlier than planned. As the neural probes retracted, Jack stood up, looking refreshed and energized. The other cadets, who had been watching the holographic display of his performance, backed away slightly. "That was fun." Jack grinned. "Though I have to say, the scenarios could use more variety. On Earth, we have to deal with multiple threats simultaneously all the time. You know, like handling a wildfire while earthquakes are happening and predators are hunting you." Green's bioluminescent patches had gone completely dark from shock. "Multiple, simultaneous, threats?" "Oh yeah," Jack continued enthusiastically. "That's just a normal Tuesday back home. Really helps you develop quick thinking, you know? Speaking of which, when do we start the real challenges?" Blue's translator crackled as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. The human had just completed 7 days' worth of neural combat training in 17 minutes, provided improvement suggestions for their most advanced training system, and was asking for more difficult challenges. As the instructors huddled together, desperately reviewing their training protocols for something, anything, that might actually challenge their human cadet, Jack started teaching some of the braver alien cadets about Earth's concept of parkour. "You see," they heard him explaining, "sometimes you need to run up walls while avoiding predators and natural disasters." Blue's antennae drooped in resignation. They still had 4 more training protocols to go through, and he was beginning to suspect that their definition of advanced training might need serious revision. Desperate to find something challenging for their human cadet, Master Instructor Blue led everyone to the Academy's most dreaded training zone, the Heavy Weapons Range. This facility was notorious for its collection of the galaxy's most powerful personal combat devices. "Surely," Blue muttered to Green, "he can't master every weapon system instantly." The massive doors opened to reveal rows of exotic weaponry. Plasma rifles designed for 6-armed species, quantum disruption cannons that required neural interfaces, and graviton pulse emitters that normally needed anti-gravity assists just to lift. Cadet Stone, Blue announced, trying to sound confident, this phase typically requires 7 days to master just one weapon system. You will. His voice trailed off as Jack was already lifting a graviton pulse emitter with one hand, studying its construction with obvious interest. The weapon, designed for use by species 3 times his size, looked like a toy in his grip. Fascinating design, Jack commented, examining the power core. Though you might want to reinforce the containment housing. On Earth, we learned the hard way that energy weapons need extra shock absorption. The other cadets watched in amazement as Jack began field stripping the weapon with practiced ease. His fingers moved with surgical precision, despite never having seen the technology before. "Sir," Green whispered, her bioluminescence flickering in distress, "he's already identified 3 design improvements for the targeting system." Jack reassembled the weapon in seconds, then lifted it to firing position. "The balance is a bit off for human physiology, but I can compensate. Mind if I try the course?" Blue, too stunned to speak, simply activated the firing range. Holographic targets appeared at various distances, moving at speeds that would challenge even veteran warriors. The course was designed to take days to master. Boom! 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 The graviton pulses struck each target dead center. Jack moved through the range like a dance, his movements fluid and precise. He wasn't just hitting targets, he was choosing optimal firing positions, managing recoil, and conserving energy in ways the weapons designers hadn't thought possible. "This reminds me of skeet shooting back home," Jack called out between shots. "Though the clay pigeons usually move faster, and you have to account for wind resistance." A junior instructor fainted, their crystalline form chiming as they hit the floor. "Let's try something more challenging," Jack suggested, already moving to the next weapon station. He picked up a plasma rifle, spun it experimentally, and nodded. "Oh, this is like the multi-tool we use for home repairs on Earth, just scaled up." Before the instructors could process this alarming comparison, Jack had already mastered the plasma rifle's firing sequence. Then the quantum disruption cannon. Then the sonic pulse emitter. Each weapon, designed for specific alien physiologies, became an extension of his human form. "Your targeting systems are too linear," he explained while casually hitting impossible shots. "On Earth, we have to track prey that can move in 3 dimensions while climbing trees or burrowing underground. Plus, you need to watch for other predators at the same time." Blue's mandibles clicked in a pattern that indicated deep existential crisis. "Other predators? Sure. You never know when a bear might try to steal your catch, or a pack of wolves might think you're in their territory. Really teaches you to stay aware of your surroundings." The weapons course, designed to take 7 days, was completed in 12 minutes. Jack had not only mastered every weapon system but had also submitted several design improvements and suggested ways to make the course more challenging. "You could add some environmental hazards," he offered helpfully. "Maybe some unstable ground, or toxic gas clouds, or shifting gravity fields. You know, basic stuff." As the instructors stared at their training protocols in despair, Jack began teaching some of the more adventurous alien cadets how to compensate for recoil using this neat trick we learned from hunting during earthquakes. Blue and Green shared a look of pure resignation. They still had 3 more training protocols to go through, and their human cadet was treating their most advanced weapons like simple toys. "Perhaps," Blue suggested weakly, "we should update our definition of advanced weaponry." With 4 protocols shattered in less than an hour, Master Instructor Blue led everyone to the Stealth and Survival Complex. This underground facility was designed to test a cadet's ability to remain undetected while navigating hostile environments. Finally, Blue whispered to Green, something that requires patience and careful movement. No species can rush through stealth training. The facility was a maze of corridors filled with motion sensors, heat detectors, sound analyzers, and chemical sniffers. Robotic sentries patrolled with enhanced scanning capabilities, and the gravity shifted randomly to throw off movement patterns. Cadet Stone, Blue announced, his voice steady despite his trembling antennae, "This course tests your ability to remain undetected. Most species require days to learn how to mask their biological signatures." Jack was already studying the entrance, a slight grin on his face. "Oh, like hunting during predator season back home. When you have to stay downwind of everything that's trying to eat you." Before Blue could process this disturbing comparison, Jack had disappeared into the complex. The observation screens showed nothing. All sensors reported normal readings. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. Impossible. Green's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. "He's completely masked his heat signature." "Humans evolved as pursuit predators," Jack's voice came through the comm system, making several instructors jump. "We learned to control our body temperature, mask our scent, and move silently while tracking prey for days. Though this is much easier without having to worry about competing apex predators." The alien cadets watched in awe as Jack navigated the course. He moved like a ghost, his footsteps making no sound despite his size. When robotic sentries approached, he seemed to melt into shadows that shouldn't have been able to hide him. "His heartbeat is regulated," one of the medical instructors noted with disbelief. "He's consciously controlling his biological functions." Jack's voice came through again, now from a different section. "You might want to adjust your sensor ranges. They're calibrated for species that haven't evolved to hunt by stealth. Also, your ventilation system creates predictable air currents, useful for masking movement sounds." Blue frantically checked the course progress. Jack had already covered more ground in 10 minutes than most cadets managed in 3 days. Not a single sensor had detected him, and he was leaving notes about security improvements in his wake. "The thermal masking is pretty straightforward," Jack explained while casually evading a patrol. "On Earth, we have to hide from creatures that can sense body heat from kilometers away. You learn to regulate your temperature pretty quickly when the alternative is becoming something's dinner." As Jack approached the survival section, the instructors activated environmental hazards. Toxic zones, radiation pockets, and areas of extreme temperature appeared randomly. "Oh, nice." Jack's enthusiasm was unnervingly genuine. "This is like that camping trip I took in the radioactive exclusion zone back home. Though you might want to make the radiation patterns less predictable." He proceeded to demonstrate survival techniques that seemed to defy biology. Using minimal equipment, he created safe zones, neutralized toxic areas, and even improved the efficiency of the facility's hazard generation systems. "Your toxic compounds are too simple," he suggested while casually disarming a chemical trap. "On Earth, we deal with naturally occurring substances that can kill you in seconds." Really teaches you to be careful with your environment. The stealth and survival course, designed to take a full week, was completed in 15 minutes. Jack emerged from the exit looking refreshed, carrying a list of suggested improvements longer than the original course manual. "That was relaxing," he announced to the stunned instructors. "Though you might want to add some actual predators. Maybe something with enhanced senses? And the survival challenges could use more variety, perhaps some psychological elements?" Blue's translator struggled to convey his mix of awe and horror. "Psychological elements? Sure. On Earth, we have plants that make you hallucinate if you breathe near them. Really adds an extra challenge to survival training." As the alien cadets gathered around Jack, eagerly asking about Earth survival challenges, Blue and Green retreated to review their remaining protocols. They had 2 more tests to go, and their definition of advanced survival training was clearly in need of a complete overhaul. Perhaps, Green suggested weakly, we should ask him to help design the next generation of training programs? With 5 protocols demolished in under an hour, Master Instructor Blue led the group to the Tactical Command Center. This massive facility featured holographic battle simulations and was designed to test leadership abilities under extreme pressure. Tactical command requires careful planning, Blue announced, his mandibles twitching nervously. No amount of physical prowess can rush the development of leadership skills. The center hummed to life, creating a detailed holographic battlefield. Alien cadets were assigned to different squadrons under Jack's command, each controlling robotic units from their neural interface pods. Your mission, Green explained, is to lead these squadrons through a series of increasingly complex battle scenarios. Most commanders need days to develop effective communication with different species. Jack surveyed the holographic terrain with practiced ease. Interesting. This is like organizing neighborhood watch during disaster season back home. Before the instructors could inquire about this alarming comparison, Jack had already begun organizing his mixed-species squadrons with remarkable efficiency. Listen up, team. His voice carried natural authority. We'll use your species' natural strengths. Crystal forms, you're our sensor array. Floating gas forms, high reconnaissance. Insectoids, rapid response teams. Think of it like a nature documentary, but we're all working together. The alien cadets found themselves instantly understanding their roles through Jack's simple but effective Earth-based analogies. When facing multiple threats, he explained while coordinating a complex maneuver, think like a pack of wolves working with eagles and burrowing animals. Each species brings unique advantages. The first simulation involved defending a space colony from pirates. Jack's solution was so efficient that the simulation AI had to generate 3 times the normal number of threats to make it challenging. Your attack patterns are too predictable, he commented while orchestrating a masterful defense. On Earth, even simple predators know to mix up their hunting strategies. And prey animals are even craftier. The second scenario featured a planetary invasion. Jack's response left the instructors speechless. He coordinated his mixed-species squadrons in ways that maximized their natural abilities while minimizing their vulnerabilities. Formations like this work great, he explained enthusiastically. We learned it from watching how different animal species cooperate during natural disasters. Amazing what you can learn from a forest fire evacuation. Green's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly as she reviewed the performance metrics. He's not just commanding, he's teaching them to think differently. Look at how the squadrons are adapting. Jack moved through a week's worth of tactical scenarios in 14 minutes, breaking records and rewriting strategic doctrines with each solution. His Earth-based approach to multi-species warfare proved revolutionary. You see, he explained while casually countering a simulated fleet invasion, when you live on a death world, you learn that survival often depends on unlikely alliances. Like that time the local predators and prey species worked together to escape a volcanic eruption. The alien cadets were absorbing his teachings with unprecedented speed. Species that normally struggled to cooperate were now working in perfect harmony, inspired by Jack's stories of Earth's ecosystem. Sir, a junior instructor reported, the AI is requesting permission to archive his tactical innovations. It's calling them groundbreaking advances in multi-species combat doctrine. Blue watched in amazement as Jack turned the command center into an impromptu classroom, teaching alien cadets about swarm intelligence and apex predator strategies. The key is adaptability, Jack explained to his enthralled audience. On Earth, you might start your day escaping a flash flood, then have to deal with territorial predators, and end up helping different species survive a forest fire. Really teaches you to think on your feet. As the final simulation concluded, Jack had not only completed the tactical command course but had fundamentally transformed how the Academy approached multi-species combat training. Maybe add some environmental challenges to the simulations, he suggested helpfully. Nothing builds trust like having to work together to survive an earthquake while evading predators. Blue and Green shared a look of profound realization. They had one protocol remaining, and their human cadet had just revolutionized Federation military doctrine using principles learned from Earth's daily survival challenges. Perhaps, Blue muttered, we should reconsider our classification of Earth as merely a death world. It seems we've been dramatically underestimating its educational value. For the final protocol, Master Instructor Blue led everyone to the Emergency Response Chamber, the Academy's most sophisticated facility. This massive arena could simulate any disaster scenario in the known galaxy, often used as the final test for graduating classes. Last test, Cadet Stone, Blue announced, his voice carrying a mix of anticipation and resignation. Emergency response requires quick thinking while maintaining absolute calm under pressure. Jack stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by his fellow cadets who had now become his eager students. After witnessing his previous performances, they'd requested to participate in his final challenge. The scenario will combine multiple catastrophic events, Green explained, activating the simulation. You must coordinate rescue efforts while the chamber erupted into chaos. Multiple shipwrecks appeared, surrounded by spatial anomalies. A nearby planet began experiencing simultaneous volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and atmospheric deterioration. Thousands of holographic civilians needed immediate evacuation. Oh, nice. Jack's enthusiasm remained undiminished. This is like a typical Tuesday back home, just in space. He immediately began organizing the alien cadets into rescue teams, applying everything they'd learned from his previous lessons. Remember the forest fire evacuation techniques, he called out. Same principle, different environment. Crystal forms, use your natural resistance to radiation for the engine room rescues. Gas forms, you're perfect for atmosphere stabilization. The instructors watched in amazement as Jack transformed what was supposed to be a brutal final exam into an impromptu masterclass in crisis management. See how the ship's hull is buckling, he explained while coordinating multiple rescue operations simultaneously. Just like dealing with structural collapse during an earthquake. And those spatial anomalies? Treat them like predator territories, respect their boundaries but use them to your advantage. Blue's mandibles clicked rapidly as he reviewed the performance metrics. He's not just solving the crisis, he's turning it into a learning experience for everyone involved. Jack moved through the simulation with practiced ease, treating catastrophic events like routine occurrences. Every challenge the system threw at him was met with an Earth-based solution that seemed oddly appropriate. When multiple disasters strike, he lectured while evacuating a space station, prioritize like we do during hurricane season. First secure the immediate threats, then establish safe zones, finally coordinate long-term survival strategies. The simulation, designed to take a full week to complete, was mastered in 16 minutes. But more importantly, every alien cadet participating had performed beyond all expectations, guided by Jack's Earth-inspired wisdom. As the emergency scenarios concluded, Blue called an emergency meeting of the Academy's highest-ranking instructors. After a brief discussion, he approached Jack with unprecedented news. Cadet Stone, Blue announced formally, in light of your extraordinary performance and revolutionary teaching methods, the Academy is offering you an immediate position as Special Instructor of Deathworld Tactics. The alien cadets burst into excited chatter, their various appendages and anatomical features expressing unanimous approval. You haven't just completed our course, Green added, her bioluminescence glowing with respect. You've transformed our understanding of survival, combat, and crisis management. Your Earth-based approaches to problems have opened up entirely new fields of tactical theory. Jack smiled warmly. I'd be honored to teach. Though we might want to make some adjustments to the training programs. Maybe add some combined challenges. Like toxic atmosphere navigation during a solar storm while evading predators? Blue's translator crackled as he tried to process this suggestion. You mean, people do this on Earth? Oh, sure. Jack replied cheerfully. That's just basic wilderness survival back home. Wait until I tell you about our extreme sports. As the ceremony concluded, the Academy's AI announced that it had created a new classification of training protocols based on Jack's performance, Earth Standard Challenges. The existing, advanced, courses were promptly reclassified as beginner level. Blue watched as the alien cadets gathered around their new instructor, eagerly asking questions about Earth's daily survival challenges. In just 1 hour, a human from a death world had not only completed their most demanding course but had fundamentally transformed the Federation's approach to military training. Perhaps, Blue mused to Green, we should reconsider our galaxy's classification system. If this is what humans consider normal, what do they consider challenging? The answer, they suspected, might revolutionize the Federation's understanding of the universe itself.